I gripped my portfolio tighter, feeling the leather dig into my palms as Gwen blocked my path to the Murray conference room. The morning light streamed through the glass walls, illuminating the empty chairs and pristine table where I'd planned to prepare my presentation. "I'm sorry, but do we have a problem?" I asked, showing her my digital reservation confirmation. "I booked this room 3 days ago." Gwen's lips curled into that familiar smirk I'd observed for 3 weeks now. Her pearl necklace caught the light as she straightened her spine, using her extra 2 inches of height to maximum advantage. "This space," she said, tapping her manicured nail against the door, "is reserved for senior staff only, not for." Her gaze swept over my simple gray blazer and practical flats, lingering on the institute lanyard that identified me only as Sarah, Research Division. "Not for people like you." Heat crept up my neck as I noticed Dr. Pierce and Dr. Harlow pretending to study their tablets nearby, deliberately avoiding eye contact. They'd seen this before. Everyone had. But the online system showed availability. I insisted quietly, aware of how my voice echoed in the corridor. There was no indication of rank restrictions. Gwen sighed as if dealing with a stubborn child. 20 years I've maintained standards at this institute. 20 years of excellence because we understand hierarchy. She gestured toward the elevator. "Try the basement room. That's where new researchers belong until they've proven themselves." The basement room. No windows, spotty Wi-Fi, and chairs that squeaked with every movement, where important work went to die. I could feel eyes on my back as I turned away, my carefully prepared materials now useless. The whispers would start as soon as I was out of earshot, another newcomer put in their place. "And Sarah?" Gwen called after me. "Next time, check with my office before making reservations. It'll save everyone time." I nodded without turning around, walking steadily toward my office at the end of the corridor. Only when I closed my door did I allow my neutral expression to slip, revealing a calm smile as I glanced at my nameplate sitting face down on my desk, the one that would be installed tomorrow. The one that read, Dr. Sarah Lynn, Director of Research and Scientific Innovation. I'd spent the last decade revolutionizing methodologies that transformed 3 failing research institutions into world-class facilities. The board had recruited me with one mission: salvage their plummeting reputation and dismantle the toxic hierarchy that was driving away top talent. Their only request? Observe from the shadows for 3 weeks before the official announcement. Now I understood why. Hey, if you're enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories just like this one. Leave a comment telling me what you'd do in Sarah's situation. Would you reveal your identity immediately, or wait for the perfect moment? I'd love to know your thoughts before we continue. My name is Sarah Lynn, and I've built my career on patience. While my colleagues chased spotlight moments and rushed publications, I refined methodologies that stood the test of time. At 37, I'd become known as the architect in research circles, the problem solver institutions called when systems were broken beyond conventional repair. The Westlake Scientific Institute had once been a pioneer in biomedical research. Now it was hemorrhaging talent and innovation, its reputation sustained only by achievements from a decade ago. When the board chairman called me, desperation had colored his voice. "Our younger researchers are leaving in droves," he'd explained. "Grant applications have dropped 60%. We need someone who can see what we can't." I'd accepted on one condition: 3 weeks of anonymity to observe the institute's true dynamics without the artificial behavior that inevitably accompanies a new leadership announcement. What I discovered was more troubling than statistics suggested. Innovation wasn't just stagnating, it was actively suppressed. Resources flowed to a select circle of senior researchers, regardless of merit. Promising projects died in basement rooms while mediocre work with the right names attached received prime facilities and funding. And at the center of this system stood Gwendolyn Foster, administrative head of operations. Not technically a researcher herself, Gwen had accumulated extraordinary power through her control of schedules, space allocations, and resource distribution. She decided whose grant applications received administrative support, which projects got showcased to visitors, and who received invitations to career-making conferences. For 20 years, she'd cultivated an inner circle bound by loyalty rather than excellence. Critical voices were systematically isolated. Talented researchers who questioned the status quo found themselves without lab space, stuck with broken equipment, or saddled with excessive administrative duties until they inevitably left. I'd watched it all from my deliberately modest office, taking notes in meetings where junior researchers' voices were ignored or interrupted. I'd seen brilliant ideas dismissed without consideration, while mediocre proposals from Gwen's favorites sailed through approval. Now, returning from my humiliating encounter, I settled behind my desk and reviewed my notes one final time. Tomorrow's executive meeting would be more significant than anyone anticipated. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts exactly 22 minutes after our hallway encounter. "Come in," I called, sliding my tablet into a drawer. Gwen entered with the confident stride of someone accustomed to controlling rooms. Her practiced smile faltered as she noticed my sparse office, deliberately chosen as the smallest in the research wing. "I wanted to personally welcome you," she began. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced since you arrived. I'm Gwendolyn Foster, head of administrative operations." Then her eyes fell on my nameplate, still face down on my desk, partially visible from her angle. "What's this?" she asked, taking an uninvited step forward. I turned the nameplate upright with deliberate slowness. The blood drained from her face so rapidly I wondered if she might faint. "Director of, you're the new. The board's announcement goes out tomorrow morning," I said calmly. I requested time to observe normal operations before assuming my official role. She sank into the chair across from me, pearl necklace trembling slightly against her collarbone. "The conference room," she whispered. "I didn't realize." "That was the point," I replied. 3 weeks of seeing this institute as it truly functions, rather than how it performs when leadership is watching. Her breathing quickened, carefully crafted confidence crumbling. "I can explain about earlier. We have protocols for resource allocation that ensure—" "I'm intimately familiar with your protocols, Miss Foster," I interrupted. "That's precisely why I'm here." Her mind was visibly racing, calculating damage control strategies. I could almost see her rewriting history, constructing alternate narratives where her actions served some greater institutional good. "Dr. Lin?" she began, voice steadying as she regained composure. "In my 20 years here, I've developed systems that maintain our standards. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions about resource prioritization." "Interesting approach to prioritization," I noted. "I've been particularly studying your basement conference room. Did you know it has black mold in 2 corners? Yet, it's where our immunocompromised research subjects support group was scheduled to meet last week." Her smile tightened. "Maintenance issues happen in any facility. I'll have that addressed immediately, along with the pattern of which researchers consistently receive substandard facilities." She leaned forward, voice dropping confidentially. "Between us, scientific excellence requires difficult choices. Some researchers simply haven't proven their value yet, like Dr. Isabel Kamari, whose cancer screening protocol was just adopted by 17 major hospitals. She left after being relegated to the basement for 8 months despite her breakthrough results." Gwen's jaw tightened momentarily before she forced another smile. "Individual cases don't reflect overall patterns. I'd be happy to walk you through our allocation methodologies tomorrow. With your fresh perspective and my institutional knowledge, we could make an exceptional team." The practice charm was returning, her recovery almost impressive. She'd survived 3 directors before me, I remembered, each time adapting, aligning, and ultimately shaping institutional culture back to her preferred hierarchy. "I look forward to tomorrow's executive meeting," I said, offering nothing more. She stood, smoothing her skirt. "Shall I have maintenance move your things to the director's office this afternoon?" "No need. I'll work from here until after tomorrow's meeting." Confusion flickered across her face, but she nodded graciously. "As you wish. And please, feel free to use the Murray room whenever you'd like. I'll personally ensure it's always available to you." "That won't be necessary," I replied. "The online booking system works perfectly when everyone follows the same rules." She paused at the door, calculating one final approach. "Dr. Lin, I hope we can move past this unfortunate misunderstanding. In my defense, the board kept your identity completely confidential." "Yes," I said, meeting her gaze directly. "They did exactly as I asked." As the door closed behind her, I returned to my preparations. By tomorrow evening, Gwen would understand exactly why I'd spent 3 weeks watching, rather than directing, and why the board had been so eager to bring me here. But first, I had a basement conference room to visit. The basement conference room's flickering lights cast sickly shadows across peeling wallpaper. A musty odor hung heavy, emanating from dark patches in the corners. The mold I'd mentioned to Gwen. The ancient projector hummed loudly, its fans struggling against accumulated dust. Yet this dismal space buzzed with energy as 6 researchers huddled around a table meant for 20. Their voices quieted when I entered. Don't mind me, I said, taking a seat in the back corner. Please continue. They exchanged uncertain glances before a young woman with bright eyes and a determined expression stood up. As I was saying, our detection method shows 93% accuracy in early-stage identification, compared to current standards of 78%. She clicked to the next slide, which refused to advance. She tapped the remote repeatedly before sighing. Technology down here is temperamental. Here, let me, said an older researcher, fiddling with cables. Quinn's work deserves to be seen properly. It could revolutionize early detection if given proper support. I watched Quinn's presentation unfold, marveling at its elegance. Her methodology was brilliant, a simple adaptation that could save thousands of lives while reducing costs. Yet here she was, practicing in a moldy basement while upstairs conference rooms sat empty. Have you presented this to the department heads? I asked when she finished. Quinn's shoulders tensed. 3 times. Each time I was told it needs more development before receiving consideration for institute resources. While Dr. Peterson got full funding for his derivative imaging study, muttered another researcher. Dr. Peterson is on the prioritization committee, Quinn explained, and he's worked closely with Miss Foster for 15 years. I see, I said, making a note. And how many of you regularly use this space? They all raised their hands. We call ourselves the basement brigade, said a lanky researcher with kind eyes. Anyone doing work that challenges established methodologies eventually ends up down here. Yet you stay, I observed. Quinn straightened. The science matters more than the surroundings. Even if we're invisible here, the work isn't. I left with their research summaries and a growing sense of purpose. By evening, I'd reviewed 17 projects relegated to the basement, each innovative, each systematically sidelined. The message on my tablet arrived at 9:42 p.m. Dr. Lin, I've prepared a comprehensive briefing on institute protocols to help you navigate your first weeks. 20 years of institutional knowledge at your service. Breakfast meeting tomorrow, Gwendolyn Foster. Classic damage control. Already positioning herself as the indispensable guide, the keeper of institutional wisdom. I declined politely, citing preparation for tomorrow's executive meeting. Morning arrived with a flurry of congratulatory messages as the board's announcement went public. My office phone rang continuously until I silenced it. The nameplate on my door had been installed overnight, professionally mounted, unlike the temporary ones given to other new researchers. The executive meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the largest conference room. When I arrived 15 minutes early, Gwen was already there, arranging water bottles at each seat. Dr. Lin, I've prepared materials for your introduction. She handed me a folder containing talking points that painted the institute in glowing terms. I've highlighted key achievements you might reference. Thank you, but I've prepared my own presentation. Her smile didn't waver. Of course, but as someone new to our culture, you might find these institutional insights valuable. I'm happy to guide you through potential sensitivities. I appreciate the offer, I said, connecting my tablet to the display system. But I believe I've developed a reasonably accurate understanding during my observation period. Department heads and senior researchers filed in, curiosity evident in their expressions. Some I recognized as Gwen's inner circle, their reserved seats always in the premium conference rooms, their projects consistently prioritized regardless of merit. Others entered with more hesitation, those whose brilliance had been systematically diminished. They took seats along the walls rather than at the main table, a habit formed through years of implicit hierarchy. Please, I gestured to Quinn and her colleagues who hovered near the door, join us at the table. Every perspective is essential today. Gwen's smile tightened as she watched her carefully maintained order being rearranged. Dr. Lin, we typically follow a seating protocol for efficiency in these meetings. Not today, I replied simply. When everyone was settled, I began without preamble. For 3 weeks, I've observed this institute not as its director, but as an ordinary researcher. What I've seen has been both troubling and illuminating. The room tensed. On a large screen behind me, data began to appear, not accusations or anecdotes, but irrefutable patterns showing resource allocation, project approval rates, and publication trajectories correlated with proximity to administrative favor, rather than scientific merit. Over the past 5 years, the Institute has lost 38 researchers, I continued, 31 of whom have gone on to make significant contributions elsewhere. Meanwhile, our own innovation metrics have declined by 62%, Dr. Peterson scoffed. With respect, Dr. Lin, Complex institutions require structure. Not every researcher can access premium resources simultaneously. True, I acknowledged, which is why allocation should correlate with scientific promise rather than personal connections. I clicked to the next slide. A simple correlation between resource allocation and proximity to Gwen's influence network. The data told its own damning story. This isn't about individual blame, I clarified, noting Gwen's increasingly rigid posture. Systems evolve over time, often with unintended consequences. Our task now is correction, not accusation. For 90 minutes, I outlined comprehensive changes, transparent resource allocation, blind review processes for internal funding, rotation of conference room scheduling, and an anonymous reporting system for bias or favoritism. Throughout, Gwen maintained perfect composure, nodding at appropriate moments while making careful notes. Only the whitening of her knuckles betrayed her distress. Finally, I said, effective immediately, we're implementing structural changes to administration. The room stilled. Here came the moment many expected, Gwen's demotion or dismissal. She herself sat straighter, chin lifting slightly, as if preparing for a blow. Our administrative head will now lead a newly created transparency initiative, I announced. Ms. Foster's 20 years of experience makes her uniquely qualified to implement these reforms. Confusion rippled through the room. Gwen's expression shifted from resigned dignity to uncertainty. I don't understand, she said carefully. You'll oversee implementation of all new protocols, I explained. Your responsibilities will include monthly public reporting on resource allocation patterns, scheduling equity, and diversity of funded research streams. Understanding dawned in her eyes. She wasn't being removed, she was being repurposed. Every policy she would now enforce contradicted her previous actions. Every report she would file would document the very problems she had created. Additionally, you'll chair a new equity committee comprised of researchers from all levels, including those currently using basement facilities. You want me to dismantle my own systems, she stated flatly. I want you to transform them, I corrected. Your intimate knowledge of current processes makes you ideal for guiding their evolution. As the meeting concluded, department heads filed out with thoughtful expressions. Some looked relieved, others unsettled. Quinn and her colleagues departed with cautious hope, stealing glances back as if fearing this change might evaporate in their absence. Gwen remained seated, her perfect composure finally cracking. Why not simply fire me? She asked when we were alone. This position you've created is precisely aligned with your stated values, I finished. You've repeatedly emphasized your dedication to maintaining standards and excellence. Now you'll uphold different standards, ones based on merit rather than connection. You're using me as an example, she said, voice hardening. Public humiliation disguised as opportunity. No, Gwen, I'm offering genuine transformation. Your institutional knowledge is valuable, but its application needs correction. She gathered her materials, dignity reassembling like armor. I've survived 3 directors before you, Dr. Lin. I'm aware, each time returning to familiar patterns once initial scrutiny faded. I met her gaze directly. That won't happen this time. We'll see, she replied, voice steady despite her trembling hands. This institute has deeper traditions than you understand. Perhaps, I acknowledged. But tomorrow morning, I'll be visiting the basement conference room again. I suggest you join me. She paused at the door. Why would I do that? Because Quinn is presenting her detection methodology to the National Health Advisory Board via video conference. From that room, that's impossible. The technology has been upgraded as of this morning, I finished, along with new chairs, proper lighting, and mold remediation. After all, we can't have international partners questioning our standards. Her expression hardened, calculation replacing shock. You've made your point, Dr. Lin. No, I said quietly. Not yet, but I will. As the door closed behind her, I gathered my materials, knowing this was merely the opening move in what would be a carefully orchestrated transformation. Gwen believed she could outlast me as she had others before. She didn't yet realize that, unlike my predecessors, I hadn't come to manage the institute. I had come to remake it. And sometimes, true remaking requires dismantling from within. 2 weeks passed in carefully orchestrated transition. Each morning, the Transparency Committee, headed reluctantly by Gwen, met to review resource allocations. Each afternoon, implementation reports crossed my desk, detailing which changes had been executed and which faced logistical challenges. Those challenges multiplied suspiciously. Regrettably, the basement renovations will require additional time, Gwen informed the committee, her voice professionally apologetic. Structural concerns have emerged during initial assessments. Interesting, I replied, sliding a folder across the table. Because our independent contractor completed a full inspection yesterday. His report indicates all renovations can proceed immediately. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. I'll revisit this with our facilities team. After she left, Quinn lingered behind. She'll find another way to delay. She always does. I'm counting on it, I said. The pattern continued through our third week. Every roadblock Gwen erected was met with quiet, irrefutable counteraction. When premium lab equipment mysteriously became unavailable for basement researchers, I produced documentation showing its underutilization by senior teams. When conference room schedules developed unexplained system errors, I implemented a transparent backup system managed by rotating committee members. Each victory was small, each compounded her mounting frustration. You can't micromanage every decision in this institute, she finally snapped during our private weekly review. I'm not, I replied calmly. I'm ensuring decisions follow merit-based protocols rather than personal preference. These researchers you're championing, they lack experience. They haven't proven themselves. How could they? You've systematically denied them the resources to do so. Her careful composure cracked slightly. I've dedicated 20 years to this institute. Everything I've built is being transformed, not destroyed, I interrupted. Your systems are being repurposed toward actual excellence rather than appearance of excellence. Later that evening, passing the main conference room, I noticed lights still burning. Inside, Gwen sat alone, surrounded by policy documents, her normally perfect posture slumped with exhaustion. For a moment, sympathy flickered. Then I remembered Quinn practicing her breakthrough presentation in a moldy room. Dr. Harlow deferring retirement because his funding was repeatedly redirected to less promising but better connected projects. Talented researchers whose careers withered while mediocrity flourished under Gwen's careful cultivation of hierarchy. The fourth week brought the first major test, the quarterly innovation showcase where potential funders toured ongoing research. Traditionally, Gwen controlled which projects were highlighted, inevitably those from her favored circle. This quarter's showcase will feature a representative selection from all research divisions. I announced at our planning meeting. We can't possibly feature everything, Gwen objected. Donors expect curated excellence. Indeed, which is why selection will be based on quantifiable metrics rather than personal assessment. The showcase lineup emerged with Quinn's project in a prime position, alongside 5 other previously sidelined researchers. Dr. Peterson's derivative work, typically given center stage, received a modest corner display. The morning of the showcase, I arrived early to find Gwen redirecting audiovisual equipment from Quinn's station to Peterson's. Technical issues, she explained smoothly. We're ensuring every presentation functions properly. How thoughtful, I replied. Fortunately, I anticipated potential equipment shortages and brought backup systems for everyone. I gestured to the technicians wheeling in new display monitors. No researcher will be disadvantaged today. The showcase proceeded flawlessly. Quinn's presentation drew significant attention, with 3 potential funders requesting follow-up meetings. Other basement researchers, similarly impressed, their innovative approaches finally receiving proper visibility. Afterward, several board members approached me privately. Remarkable talent we've apparently had hidden away, noted the board chair. Makes one wonder what else we've been missing. Gwen overheard this comment as she passed. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed a calculating intensity. That evening, a message appeared on my tablet. Dr. Lin, I believe we've begun with incompatible assumptions about institutional needs. Perhaps a private discussion might align our perspectives? Dinner tomorrow? Gwendolyn Foster. I declined politely, suggesting instead she present her concerns at the next Transparency Committee meeting. Her response came quickly. Some matters require discretion. I have information about certain researchers' histories you may find relevant to your assessment of their potential. So there it was, the inevitable attempt to undermine through whispered doubt. I forwarded her message to my secure archive without replying. The following morning, Quinn burst into my office without knocking, face flushed with anger. Dr. Peterson is claiming collaborative credit on my detection method. He's telling potential funders he provided crucial conceptual guidance when he actively blocked my research for months. I nodded calmly. I suspected something like this might emerge. Did you document your research progression? Every step, with timestamps and witness signatures. But that didn't matter before. Peterson has influence. He has connections. I corrected gently. He had those things. Quinn's hands trembled slightly. You don't understand. This always happens. They find ways to take credit, to redirect funding. The system protects them. The old system did. I agreed. This one won't. That afternoon, I called a special meeting of department heads. Dr. Peterson arrived looking confident, Gwen slightly behind him with a carefully neutral expression. I understand there's a dispute regarding intellectual contribution to the early detection methodology, I began. Peterson nodded gravely. Unfortunate situation. Young researchers sometimes misunderstand collaborative environments. I've merely clarified my guiding role in developing concepts Quinn subsequently implemented. How exactly did this guidance occur, I asked. Through scheduled meetings? Documented feedback? Joint laboratory sessions? He shifted slightly. More informal. Conversations after department meetings. Suggestions during her early presentations. Interesting, I said, opening a folder. Because Quinn has provided comprehensive documentation of her research progression, including dated laboratory notes, sequential methodology developments, and witness-signed verification of independent work. I slid the materials forward. Additionally, I have records of your 3 formal rejections of her requests for collaboration, each stating her approach lacked sufficient merit to warrant senior researcher involvement. Peterson's confident expression faltered. Those early assessments were based on incomplete understanding. As her work developed, I recognized its potential and offered guidance. After the National Health Advisory Board expressed interest, I noted, quite a coincidence in timing. Gwen intervened smoothly. Research development is rarely linear, Dr. Lin. Informal contributions often prove significant even when undocumented, which is why our new attribution policy requires contemporaneous documentation of all substantive input. I replied. A policy you yourself implemented last week, Miss Foster. The meeting concluded with Peterson's claims officially rejected and a formal note added to his file. As everyone filed out, Gwen remained behind. You've made an enemy today, she said quietly. Peterson has powerful connections outside the institute. I'm well aware, I replied, just as I'm aware of your dinner with him last night. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Monitoring my private meetings now? Not at all. But the restaurant you chose is directly across from my apartment building. Pure coincidence. For a moment, something like respect flickered in her eyes. You're more thorough than your predecessors. I came here for a specific purpose, Gwen, to transform this institute's culture completely, not partially. Every system you created to maintain your version of standards will be dismantled or repurposed. She studied me with new calculation. You know, in 3 months, the initial enthusiasm for reform will fade. The board will refocus on funding metrics and publication rates. This crusade of yours will become increasingly inconvenient. That's what you're counting on, isn't it? Weathering the storm until you can gradually restore the old hierarchies in new disguises. Her silence was confirmation enough. Here's what you haven't understood yet, I continued. I'm not like the others. I didn't accept this position as a career advancement or prestige appointment. I came specifically to address institutionalized dysfunction. I handed her a folder containing our next month's initiatives. And I've planned for the long game, not just the opening moves. The following weeks brought escalating resistance. Subtle at first, implementation delays attributed to clarification needs. Then increasingly overt as Gwen realized I wouldn't be outlasted or outmaneuvered. Anonymous complaints about disruptive restructuring appeared in board members' inboxes. Long-standing donors received concerned calls about declining standards. Senior researchers suddenly discovered scheduling conflicts for essential committee meetings. Each maneuver was met with calm, systematic countermeasures. Each complaint addressed with data showing improved research outcomes and rising application rates from top scientists eager to join our transformed environment. The decisive moment arrived unexpectedly, 2 months into my directorship. The quarterly board meeting had proceeded smoothly until the final agenda item, Ethics Committee Report. Typically a formality reviewing research compliance, this particular report contained an unexpected addendum, submitted anonymously. Allegations of targeted harassment of established researchers, read the board chair, looking concerned. Claims that new leadership has created a hostile environment for senior staff through systematic favoritism toward junior researchers. All eyes turned to me. I recognized Gwen's strategy immediately. using the very language of reform against the reforms themselves. These are serious concerns, I acknowledged. Who submitted this addendum? Anonymous, replied the chair, for fear of retaliation. I see, I said, opening my tablet. Interesting timing. As I've prepared my own report for today, I projected a comprehensive analysis onto the main screen. Comparative data, showing research output, grant application success rates, and innovation metrics for the past 5 years versus our 2 months of reformed protocols. Productivity has increased 26%, I noted. Grant application success improved 31%. Most tellingly, researcher retention has reversed its 5-year decline. The board members studied the data with evident surprise. Additionally, I continued, I've compiled a more specific analysis. The next slide appeared, showing side-by-side comparisons of resource allocation patterns, before and after implementation of transparent protocols. The left column shows historical distribution of premium resources, laboratory space, equipment access, conference opportunities, and administrative support. Note the concentration among 7 specific senior researchers regardless of project merit or outcome potential. The pattern was unmistakable, a small circle of privilege amid systematic deprivation. The right column shows current distribution based on our new merit assessment protocols. The board chair leaned forward. The difference is striking. Indeed, because true excellence flourishes when opportunity aligns with innovation rather than established hierarchy. I changed to the final slide, a simple graph tracking research breakthrough announcements against researcher retention rates. For 5 years, we've been hemorrhaging talent while breakthrough innovations declined proportionally. In 2 months of reformed protocols, we've reversed both trends simultaneously. The room fell silent as the implications settled. The anonymous ethics complaint suddenly appeared transparent in its motivation. The board chair cleared his throat. This is compelling evidence of positive transformation, Dr. Lin. Thank you. Now, regarding the anonymous ethics complaint, I turned deliberately toward Gwen, who maintained perfect composure, despite the subtle tension in her shoulders. Perhaps its author would like to elaborate on specific concerns. Every eye followed mine. No one spoke. In that case, I continued, I suggest we address these concerns through complete transparency. I propose a comprehensive review of all administrative decisions over the past 5 years, including resource allocations, funding approvals, and personnel assignments. Gwen's carefully neutral expression faltered slightly. This historical review, I added, would naturally be conducted by our Transparency Committee, which Ms. Foster so capably chairs. The trap closed perfectly. Any objection would appear as resistance to the very transparency she now officially championed. Any attempt to limit the review's scope would raise immediate questions about what she sought to hide. I believe that addresses the ethics concern thoroughly, said the board chair. Unless there are specific complaints to be voiced directly? Silence again. Then we'll proceed with Dr. Lin's recommended review. Meeting adjourned. As board members filed out, offering congratulations on the impressive metrics, Gwen remained seated, her expression unreadable. When we were alone, she finally spoke. You planned this from the beginning. No, I corrected. I anticipated it. There's a difference. What happens now? Now you have 2 choices. Resign and avoid the comprehensive review that will inevitably document 20 years of systematic favoritism, or remain and lead that very review, acknowledging every inequity while implementing its corrections. That's no choice at all, she said quietly. Either way, my reputation will reflect your actual impact rather than your carefully constructed image, I finished. Just as our researchers' reputations now reflect their actual contributions rather than their political positioning. She gathered her materials with deliberate calm. You've orchestrated quite a checkmate, Dr. Lin. Not mine, Gwen. This victory belongs to every researcher whose innovation was stifled, every discovery delayed, every career derailed by artificial hierarchies. My role was merely to create space for their excellence to emerge naturally. 1 week later, the Transparency Committee convened its first historical review session. Gwen arrived precisely on time, impeccably prepared as always, to lead the systematic examination of her own legacy. The Murray Conference Room now hosted researchers of all levels daily, its premium facilities available based on project needs rather than rank. Quinn's detection method had secured major funding, with clinical trials scheduled to begin within months. The basement conference room, fully renovated, had been renamed the Innovation Lab, a deliberate symbol of our transformation. And Gwen, still administrative head, now enforced with meticulous precision the very policies that dismantled her carefully constructed kingdom. My revenge wasn't removing her power. It was redirecting that power toward healing the very wounds she had created. Not public humiliation, but public redemption. Not punishment, but reformation. 3 months after my arrival, I watched her preside over the Institute's first open research forum, where any researcher could present ideas regardless of seniority. Her voice remained steady as she introduced Gwen as keynote speaker, acknowledging her groundbreaking contributions to early detection methodology. The ultimate justice wasn't in Gwen's demotion, but in her transformation, and forced to become the public champion of values she had spent decades undermining, required to witness daily the extraordinary innovation that flourished once artificial barriers fell. Sometimes true revenge isn't about destruction, but reconstruction, particularly when the architect of the problem becomes the builder of the solution, not through choice, but through the inescapable logic of a system designed for actual excellence rather than its appearance. The greatest revenge was watching Gwen apply her considerable talents toward genuine merit rather than manufactured hierarchy, and slowly, reluctantly, recognize the superior results that emerged. If you've stayed with me through this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed someone who abused their power, being forced to dismantle their own system? Or maybe you've been in Quinn's position watching your valuable contributions overlooked while others took credit? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this tale of professional justice, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about accountability and transformation in the workplace. Because sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't about destruction, it's about meaningful change that benefits everyone.